court in military-ruled Myanmar has found deposed leader Aung San Suu Kyi guilty of 5 counts of corruption. In a court session held behind closed doors, the 77-year-old was sentenced to a combined 7 years in prison for the offences. The Nobel Peace Prize winner has also previously been ordered to serve a total of 26 years in prison after being found guilty of a wide range of offences, all of which she has denied. Suu Kyi led Myanmar for 5 years from 2015 after the military ended its 49-year rule. The army took back control early last year to stop her government from starting a second term, accusing it of ignoring irregularities in an election her party won. Western countries have dismissed the trials as a sham.
Well, to look at this in more detail, we can speak with our political analyst, that's Dr. Saul Zakda, who's monitoring events from neighboring Thailand. Doctor, good to have you on Newsday. What's been the reaction to this latest ruling against Ms. Suu Kyi?
The reaction in Myanmar, formerly Burma, is relatively mute, simply because the people did not expect anything else from the military corps that had this discussion inside the prison where Ms. San Suu Kyi was held. Nobody had the delusion that the military court would not convict her. She has been judged, as you said before, for already 26 years. The military court added 7 years. Ms. San Suu Kyi will have to live until the age of 110 if she would like to see the daylight. And the only way that she can get out of prison before that would be that either the junta will pardon her, or due to military intervention, the military regime would fall. I can see no other way. Ms. San Suu Kyi was condemned to life in prison from the start, and the charges were most ridiculous and fabricated, and they include violating the COVID rules, fabricating the election results that she won more than 2 years ago by a landslide, wasting public funds, and the last one that has been heard today was that she was accused of buying a helicopter in an improper way. And this is in addition to a charge that got 6 years by importing some walkie-talkies into the country. So everybody knows that this is a sham. But the streets of Myanmar are relatively quiet. Of course, human rights organizations, Western democracies condemn it, but the regime is quite known for ignoring public opinion altogether.
Right, thank you. And thank you for breaking down the fact that the sentence is a further 7 years on the 26 years she's already serving. And of course, she's 77 years old, which means that, as you rightfully said, she'll have to live until 110 years old to be able to complete this. Now, you've already stated the concerns by the military junta that her presence outside of prison may cause their regime to fall. Now, from prison, do you feel that there's an impact that she can still make on the military junta?
The military junta wants her to languish in prison forever. There was some speculation, maybe it still could be realized, that the junta would pardon her alongside 16,000 more supporters, members of her party, on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of Myanmar's independence next month on the 6th of January. But I can't see that happening. The military junta has fixated the idea that Aung San Suu Kyi should not be heard because her voice outside prison can provoke the masses to protest. In addition, we have also to note that there is a state of a civil war in Myanmar today between the government and the opposition, but also between a few ethnic communities who have their own armies, and they are waging a guerrilla warfare against the government's army since the first coup in 1962.
Well, Doctor, we know the military seized power and ousted Ms. Suu Kyi in February last year, and we saw protests violently put down in the first year What's life like for people in Myanmar right now, even though you've already made it clear that there's nothing going on in the streets after this judgment?
Absolute hell on earth. I spoke to a few members of the resistance. Some of them ran away to neighboring countries, and they even showed me footage of some harrowing images in which children who participated in street demonstrations were killed by the armies, were targeted by snipers. The army is using also the Air Force to bomb villages. All in all, we are talking about 3,000 people who were killed, including hundreds of children, but the number of casualties is much higher. People who go out in the street demonstrating against the regime are risking their lives.
Right. Now, the United Nations Security Council last week passed a resolution calling for the junta to end hostilities and release all political detainees. Of course, that includes Ms. Suu Kyi. Plenty of others have criticized the junta, but as you've said earlier, to little effect. You've said they generally ignore public opinion. Now, what will it take for Myanmar to see change?
Well, we should remember that the Security Council resolution of last week was watered down at the request of two powers that keep the regime alive. And these are China and Russia. China did not officially recognize the military coup 2 years ago, but they support the regime because they don't want Aung San Suu Kyi as a pro-Western leader to be the head of the state, a neighboring country to China. And Russia supports the regime by supplying them with weapons. And I should reveal to you that last month, a delegation of Russian high-rank officers, or ironically, what have been left of the Russian high-rank officers after the war in Ukraine, they came to Myanmar and they discussed more weapons to the regime. So as long as the regime is encouraged by the support of Russia and China, I cannot see any change in the horizon. Security Council was actually moderated its resolution in order to prevent Russia and China from vetoing it.
Well, Dr. Zakda, you've been very vocal about the fact that the international community, there are limitations regarding this, and we don't even know if there are any options left for Ms. Suu Kyi to explore at this time. But we're certainly grateful for your time, and thank you so much for joining us on Newsday. That's Dr. Saul Zakda, and he's a political analyst who's been monitoring the progress of this trial.